Hi, I'm a broken Tony. This is Slack. Welcome to Smog Vlog. Today we're going to be talking about DIY eJuices. And welcome back. So, today, like we said, we're going to be doing eJuices for you. I'm going to be doing most of the talking, seeing as I'm a broken Tony, DIY related injury. Nothing to do with eJuice though, so, you know, not so bad. Like I said, I'm going to be doing most of the talking because further on in this video, Slack's going to be taking us through the whole process of working out formulas with the computer and also taking you through the mixing process as well.
You make it sound a bit complicated, but I just want to stress it's really not. It is really easy.
As we discussed earlier that you didn't see, it's probably easier than cooking a pizza. And, you know, while it is child's play to make your own DIY eJuice, as nicotine is involved, which is a toxin, not for kids.
So what we said, this is simple. There's only a few key components that actually go into an eJuice. Tony?
Okay, first up we've got vegetable glycerin,
commonly known as VG.
Next up we've got propylene glycol,
which is commonly known as PG.
Next up is your flavourings,
commonly known as flavourings. Those flavourings are usually PG based as well.
Yeah. And lastly you've got your nicotine,
commonly known as nicotine,
which is not so good for you.
Yeah, nicotine's the only thing we need to be cautious with. It's poisonous. You don't want to let kids or animals get anywhere near it. But if you're an adult and you're handling this yourself, it's no more scary than handling an oven tray. You know, going back to the pizza reference. Not that you should put pizza on a tray, but you know, it's one of those things that, like handling scissors. You don't let kids do it on their own. But you know, when you're an adult, scissors are not at all scary, and it's the same thing with nicotine. You know, handle it properly, and there's absolutely nothing to worry about. If you were to accidentally drink a bottle, maybe more.
Yeah. Interestingly, when I first sort of heard about eJuices being made, people were sort of like making YouTube videos saying how they sort of rent out medical grade places to mix up their own bottles of eJuice because of the nicotine involved, and they wanted a completely sterile environment. The flip side to that is that in the news, I think last year, I heard the first bottle of eJuice being shipped with a pubic hair in it. Obviously, we want to aim for some middle ground here.
Yeah, don't mix it with your cock. Probably not a good idea. Yeah, so I mean, Tony's story there about people renting out these medical kitchen sort of clean surfaces was one of the things that sort of made me a little bit cautious of making my own eJuice. And in the end, I thought, just fuck it, I'm going to give it a go. And it's brilliant. It's really easy. I just clean the living room table off, put loads of sort of protective towels down, a bit of blue cloth, and away you go. And it's really easy, and as long as you're sort of careful with the way you handle things. And we're not talking careful like you're handling plutonium. We're just talking careful like not being a twat with it, really.
Yeah. Now we're going to be going down in the first step to creating eJuice. Shut up. We're going to be going down to the first step in eJuice creation. We're going to be using software. We're going to show you uppy closey with the software we're going to be using. It's called Easy. What was it called again? eJuice?
eJuice me up.
eJuice me up.
Easy as that.
Easy as that. There's also one available from Planet of the Vapes, but we're going to be using eJuice me up just because it's a hell of a lot easier than having to get pen and paper out. And if you haven't done this before, would just recommend using the software that's available to sort of like make all the calculations for you.
Yeah, there's one really complicated bit that you're going to struggle with calculating the first time you do it anyway, which is around the nicotine content. Because when you add nicotine, it's not 100% nicotine. So you need to calculate how much nicotine you're adding by volume of the nicotine solution you're going to be putting in. But I'll run through that again in the video just so it's clear, so don't worry if you don't understand that yet.
What else is important is that you can fuck up all the other levels, but for God's sakes don't fuck up the nicotine.
Yeah, really important, yeah.
Anyway, let's dive down.
Okay, the first thing you're going to want to do is download and install eJuice Me Up. It's a very small program for free off the internet. So let's open it up now, having gone through the install. Now this is actually find the screen when you very first open it up. Here's where you input all of your data and save your flavours. Now the first thing we're going to want to do is update our default template. The first thing on the default template that you need to worry about is your nicotine strength eJuice. So what this indicates here with the 100 milligrams is that would be 100 milligrams per milliliter, which isn't correct for most, if not all, nicotines. So I'm using a 72 milligram nicotine, and the base is 100% VG. So I enter that. Now this doesn't affect the juice you make directly. This is not how strong you want your juice. You must get this right according to what nicotine you've bought, otherwise all of your calculations will be out. This is like the only unsafe bit. If you get your nicotine wrong, that's a problem. Anything else, as long as you're not putting way too little in and then overdosing on nicotine, it's not a problem. So get your nicotine right, don't get your nicks in a twist. Okay, so we've adjusted our nicotine. We're going to save this as a default template, but before we do, I assume that your flavours are going to be 100% PG. Mine all are. I haven't heard of any VG flavours, but you know, there are probably some out there. If your flavours are not 100% PG, you're going to want to change that. But this is pretty good for a template. Save as default, update the default file, and that's it done. You won't have to worry about changing your nicotine value again. Okay, so having saved our default template, what we're going to do is build our first e-liquid. First thing you're going to want to change is your target nicotine strength. I usually go for somewhere around the 3 region. Let's go crazy, we'll go 4. How much are you going to make? Well, for this one, I know I like it. I'm going to make 15 ml, let's say. Here, you would add water or vodka as a percentage if you had a particularly thick VG. I'm using aqueous VG, so I don't need to do this. My VG is ready to go. Next we come down onto the flavours. Now I already know what flavours I want to put in here. So, peach, passion fruit and pomegranate. Roughly 7% of each, if I could type. Now the last thing we're going to add here is menthol drops. We need such a little amount of these menthol drops. You only need 6 to sort of properly dilute 10 ml of juice. So I'm going to put in 0.1%. Now that may seem very small, but it's just so we know we're just putting a few drops in. Okay, and the last thing before we calculate is we need to change our ratio that we want to make the e-liquid. This is the only sort of complicated bit really after the nicotine. So it doesn't do it automatically. What we really want is 100% VG. However, if you were to calculate that, in fact, let's do it. You hit calculate over here, and it says that you can't reduce stuff. Now the reason for that is your flavouring is PG based, so you can't have a 100% VG eJuice recipe. So what we're going to need to do is take that down. I make that 78.9, hopefully, and we calculate it, and that comes out okay. So as you see on the right here, you've got how many millilitres of each thing to add to your eJuice. It gives you the total that you're going to build up to, which flavours you need to add, and how much of them. What I recommend is that you transfer this onto a piece of paper so you can have that with you while you're working. It's a lot easier than having a computer or a mobile phone. As I'm happy with this recipe and I've used it before, you can save it. Here's your default thing with some example recipes. Let's give it a name. I'm going to call it So, because you may have noticed we say that a fair amount. I'm just going to quickly build another recipe, though I won't show the same process again. Okay, though I said I wasn't going to show this recipe, I figured it would be easier than trying to read my writing, so I just thought I'd quickly put it up. Also, another trick that I sometimes use is to put who makes the flavour that I'm going to add in. So CAP short for Capella, you've got TAC for the Alchemists Cupboard, who I use a lot. They've got some really good flavours. Anyway, this recipe is going to be a bit simpler with 5%, 10% and 5% making a nice round 20%. Now, you will notice that both my recipes are around about the 20% mark. That's where I like it. Now, some people will prefer it stronger. Some people will prefer it weaker. Some flavours are really strong, so you have 5% in there, and it's going to saturate your taste buds. So it helps smelling the flavours. If you've worked with them before, that's going to help. And it's very similar to cooking. You have a sniff of something, you think, will that go with it, yes or no, and you just start mixing up your own ideas. Anyway, this is one of mine. I've never tried it, so let's give it a go.
And we're back in the room. So that was the uppy closey of how to do the eJuice. Remember, when mixing these eJuices together, to make a note or save a file as to what your build of the juices was, what the ratios were, so that if you make something you like, you can accurately recreate it. Similarly, if you've created something that maybe isn't quite there and just needs a bit of touching up, then you've got sort of like the recipe in front of you, and you don't have to start from scratch again.
Yeah, I have made the mistake of once ending up basically freestyling a recipe because I was following it and made a mistake in my measurements, and I looked at it, I'm like, there's not enough liquid in this. I was sat there for a while working out what I was doing, and instead of putting 1.25 mils of something in, I put 0.125 mils, and I'm like, so I just freestyled it to made this really freaking awesome eJuice, which I can never create now. So, yeah, it's worth just sort of taking note. Similarly, when we go to build, I always have the directions written down on a piece of paper with a pen handy. So if something goes wrong or I change something midway through, I can make a note of what it is. And you don't want to be having to go back to your computer to type any changes into software when you're making eJuice, because you're going to end up covered in eJuice. So yeah, definitely have a pen and paper handy.
The other great thing I've just thought of that we should have said before that is that this software is downloadable on your Android.
The Planet the Vapes one, it's certainly Android and I think iPhone as well.
So that's sort of like brilliant just to have on your phone or tablet, just sitting on the table with you, as opposed to sort of if you haven't got a laptop available or having to go back to the computer desk to make amendments. It's quite handy.
Yeah, though I do like to run everything off paper, just because paper, the screen doesn't turn off. If it does, you've got a power cut, and you've got bigger problems.
Okay, guys, that's the ratios all sorted out, so we know how much we need to use of everything. Now comes the practical, hands-on part. Now we put it into practice and mix up some eJuice for you.
Right, that's everything set up, ready to create some eJuice. I have some sexy rubber gloves on. I've laid everything out in front of me. I've got tablecloth down, mats down, and then protection on the mats as well in the form of blue rag, just to stop any spillages causing problems. I've got my instructions of what I'm going to build laid out in front of me, which I'm going to run through, nice and handy. I've got my VG, PG, not that I'm using any in either of these mixes, nicotine, then the flavours laid out. Now usually I build several eJuices rather than just sort of two that I'm doing here, and I have it laid out in a similar way, work through the list, item at a time, one at a time. Here's the bottles that first one will go in, here's the bottles that the second one will go in. So, I guess we're about ready to begin. First one on the list is our So, which is going to be the 15ml bottle. First thing we want is 11 mils of VG. So I'm going to grab my VG. The main problem you have with VG, which is what I'm having here, is it is a bit thick and doesn't really want to go up the syringe. Okay, I reckon that is thereabouts for 11ml of VG. Okay, that's the VG done with the first one. Obviously we've got VG all over our syringe, so let's just do the VG for the second one. So this one's Demo 1A, we're calling it for now, and it's 7.4 mils of VG written down. There we go, 7.5. It's nearest, damn it. So transfer him into our nice clean bottle. Incidentally, if you clean your bottles with water, make sure it's clean cold water out of the tap and that you dry it thoroughly. If you're in a hurry, you can always give them a vodka bath. They deal with germs a bit better. Okay, so that's the VG done for both. Now, some people have different syringes for each thing they do. I'm actually a bit laid back about that. I'll just give it a little wipe off and squirt out any excess. Certainly not a perfect technique, but it works well enough for me. Now, here, if I was doing PG, this is where I would add the PG at this stage. However, neither of these recipes have, because I'm a dripper fan, so I go mostly VG. So again, some people add nicotine now. I'm going to leave it till the end. We're on to the flavours. So working through in order, we'll start with So first. Actually, one thing I will do, because the flavours require much less volume, I'll transfer to a smaller needle. I actually have a selection of needles and find that I only ever use these two, so I've given up getting the others out. So first flavour from the list now is peach. We haven't really deviated from what was on the list by enough to warrant writing it down. If there was a problem, say I was filling up peach now and I found that I didn't have a whole milliliter of peach, then I would say maybe take the half a milliliter and then replace it with something else and just sort of make a note of it as I go along. Okay, on to the next one, which is passion fruit. Again, for these bottles, I just whip the top off and use a syringe. You can actually administer them using drops of the bottle, but I think that's a bit inaccurate. The drops I find vary wildly depending on the bottle itself. While I'm not exactly a stickler for accuracy, you can see that what I do is nearest damn it. Okay, 1 ml of peach. Pomegranate next. And last but no means least, menthol concentrate. Now, there's warnings on this about how strong it is, so we don't want to overdo it. If anyone's seen Army of Darkness, very reminiscent. Okay, so that's the flavours done on there. We move on to the flavours on our second one now. As this flavour that I'm going to be going to is substantially different to the previous flavours, I'm going to just give the needle a wipe and a bit of a squeeze out. Again, not flawless technique, but this is fine. Okay, 0.5 ml. And again, this is quite a strong flavour and very different from the green tea I'm about to go to next. And sweet guava. Also having 5 ml of this. In it goes. Okay, so that's the flavours done for both our bottles. Like I say, usually when I'm doing a production line, I'll have several bottles lined up. Where they share ingredients, we just move them along the line. It's a production line thing. And I start off with the flavours, the VG and the PG. All of this is food safe. You could eat it if you want. I don't suggest you do, but you could. The only one that you need to worry about is the nicotine. I leave it till last so it's not all over everything. It's not causing problems. As soon as you've used it, you put the lids on your bottles and you're done. Okay, paying extra special care, having cleaned off my syringe as basically as possible. Nicotine, 0.8 ml. This is one you don't want to overdo. There we go, fraction under 0.8. And so I usually aim for about 4 milligrams nicotine or just under. This will give me that. That is that bottle complete. We now put our lid on. Move over to the last one, 5.5 mils. Sorry, 0.55 mils. Like I said, don't get the nicotine wrong. Don't listen to me. Okay, there's my two flavours. Now I didn't need to make any changes to these recipes, so I don't need to update that. But I will write which bottles they're in. So now we just need to clean up everything here, thoroughly wash out our equipment and get on with some turbo steeping.
Okay guys, and we're back in the room again. Right, so that was all of that mixed up. Now we're going to talk about the steeping of the juices. Now steeping is just the act of taking the bottle top off and letting the eJuice react with the air. It brings out the flavour, develops the flavour of the eJuice you've just created.
Yeah, I mean, even eJuices I buy, unless you're buying from somewhere like Gourmet Vapes who actually steep it themselves for 30 days, most places you get eJuice from, they still benefit with a bit of steeping when you buy them. So the stuff you've just made, even though Alchemists Cupboard, they pre-steep some of their stuff, you know, you're going to need to leave it. When you see recipes online, that they often say, oh, steep for 3 days minimum. That is bullshit. 3 days minimum, I mean, it'll be okay, but it won't be anywhere near as good as it can be. You need to leave at least a week, even if you do some sort of accelerated steeping sort of tricks. At least a week. 2 weeks is better. Obviously, if you can wait a month, then great. But when you're just getting into it, I certainly didn't wait that long. But what I found, I made up a batch of 4 different eJuices. I tried one at the start and I didn't really like it. So I left it to the end, went through all the others. And when I went back to it, it was amazing. It was by far my favourite. So that one had gone from being my least favourite to my most favourite just from steeping. Brilliant.
Now you guys have probably picked up on the fact that he said accelerated steeping and might be asking yourselves what we mean by that. Let's ask Slack.
Yeah, okay, so the process of steeping itself is just basically getting air and eJuice to sort of mix together. So the basic way of steeping is to take the top off, give the bottle a couple of squirts and then put the top back on. You've got new air in there, that will sit and mix. And I was thinking, well, how can we do this process quicker? So for me, I'd done my back in, so I got this back massager, and I basically strapped a bottle of eJuice to that, set it off, and it ended up going from a clear liquid to like a white foam. And I was like, oh, okay. The white foam was just air bubbles. So if you think about surface area of air bubbles, let that go through, change the air in the bottle, do it again, change the air in the bottle, do it. I was doing it about 2 or 3 times a day, and I reckon I shaved a huge amount of time off the steeping with that. It also mixes it up really good. Well, you don't need to do it. You can just sort of, as long as you give it a good shake to mix the flavours all together and let it sit for a long time with new air, that's fine. But yeah, there's certainly been some crazy methods I've read about people steeping.
I can see the audience have visions of like people sort of like with elastic bands and strapping juice bottles to dildos now. Or is that just me?
I think that might just be
Is it really?
But alright, so it's time to turbo steep our eJuice. The more observant amongst you would have noticed I didn't even mix my eJuice. That's because of the way I steep it, which you're about to see. Now, some people just leave it to steep, and that's great. I do that as part of it. However, here's my accelerated steeper, commonly known as a back massager. What I'm going to do is take the bottle of eJuice, make sure the lid's on there good and tight, and whack it in an old rubber glove. This will all make sense in a second, or as much sense as it's going to make. Okay, I've just about got it in, vaguely in the glove. Definitely doesn't look dodgy. Definitely not dodgy. Okay, that's on there, round the bottle. I'm holding the end. Definitely doesn't look dodgy. Nothing dodgy going on here at all. Okay, that should do it. Okay, I don't know if you can see that because of the white label on it, but yeah, that is now one very suspect looking eJuice. Don't be alarmed, that's where the air bubbles have gone in. This is just millions and millions of little air bubbles. What we're going to do is let these air bubbles rise out of it so the liquid returns to normal, then change the air in it simply by giving it a few puffs and closing it again. Repeat the process 2 or 3 times over the first couple of days, and then once every so often, and then just leave it. That's your steeping done. It will happen a lot quicker this way because with the air bubbles being introduced so finely to the liquid, there's more surface area contact with air for the eJuice. Oh, that was lucky the lid came off. However, as you can see, one bottle of white goo. Luckily it didn't go too much everywhere. Well mixed up, steeping well on its way. So yeah, one other method that Tony was telling me about like ages ago before I was getting into it, some guy had like got his bottle of freshly made eJuice and he bubble wrapped it up or packaged it up and then taped it to the wheel of his car and went for a drive. I mean, brilliant, but yeah, a lot more effort than I go through for sort of turbo steeping, but you know, if it works, it works.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about steeping, what you will notice while you steep is over time your juice will darken. That's perfectly natural, and it is sort of a sign that, you know, it's working really. Not all juices do, it depends on what flavours you've got inside, how it reacts with the nicotine and stuff like that. But yeah, this juice is like at least 50% darker now. So yeah, that's a good sort of indicator as to when it's ready. Okay, obviously we're not going to be able to talk about the exact juice I just made because that's going to need to steep for, I'm going to let it go for about 2 weeks probably because I've got a load of stuff to get through. We've got a few juice reviews to do anyway, so yeah, I'm probably not going to get round to it for a while, which is a good time to leave it a steep anyway. But here's my pumpkin spice latte V2 I made, which I can link you up with a recipe for. It's very high VG, it's just under 80% VG because I generally use it in drippers, though the iJust 2 works just as well in terms of juice performance. So let's give that a hit and yeah, just show you that it's, you know, nothing bad's going to happen. Yeah, I still need to make some changes in the recipe. But yeah, pumpkin spice latte, brilliant.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it could do a little bit more sweetness compared to the Starbucks pumpkin spice latte, but yeah, it's got all the key ingredients there. Just needs that little bit of sweetness. So version 3, maybe that'll be the one.
Okay, so natural progression is I would ask, how much it cost and where it came from. But in this instance, Slack, where the hell did all this come from?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of the Alchemists Cupboard. They do a really good range of stuff and they're a good price, good customer service. I like it. So I get my stuff mostly from there. Flavourings, they do their own flavourings, their own Alchemist Cupboard ones, and some of them are really, really good. I haven't got through the whole range yet, but they are really good. And also, they supply the Capella range from America, and the Capella flavour drops, they're also really, really good. You get some really diverse flavours. So yeah, we'll chuck some information in the description below, so check that out. And yeah, similarly, we might chuck some recipes in there as well, just for shits and giggles.
Okay, guys, so let's recap. Slack?
Yeah, okay. So the first thing you want to do is get your quantities correct on software, something like that, and then write them down so you have a pen and paper to hand when you make them. The only thing you really need to be careful with is getting your nicotine percentage right. Just be careful around that one. Be careful handling the nicotine, but don't be scared of it. And I suppose the last point is really to just make sure you allow enough time for it to steep. If you try it after a couple of days and you think it tastes like shit, just give it longer, And other than that, just don't be scared to give it a try and have fun making your own eJuice.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to give it a try once. I mean, it's the same scenario with vaping as it is. I mean, I tell smokers, look, what the fuck does it cost you to buy a cheap little setup and give it a go? If you don't fucking gel with it, you don't gel with it. And you can go back. You haven't really lost much. It's the same with making your own eJuice. Just, save yourself a bit of money from the high prices. I find they're high prices on some of the higher quality eJuices. So why the fuck not have a go yourself? Give it a try, see if it works for you. If you enjoy it, then you're saving yourself a bit of money and designing your own fucking eJuices.
Yeah, similarly, if you've already got some good recipes, feel free to hit them up in the comments. If you like sharing, it's good. There's recipes all over the internet, so yeah, let's share.
Yeah. Okay, guys, that about wraps it up for DIY eJuice review. Thanks for watching. If you like what we're doing, please give us a like, subscribe, all that nice shit that we like.
Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram because we are quite chatty.
Okay guys, so stay tuned for the best bits. They're coming up after the break. But for now, thanks for watching Smog Vlog. That's quite funny, isn't it? DIY injury, DIY eJuice.
Yeah.
Oh, how the stars align. Feel free to dive in at a moment's notice.
Yeah, sure. Wait, itchy nose. Yeah, go on.
Let's have a little tug. Let's not be sitting on my stick. There we go.
Oh, we just had a massive lag.
Is that better? Right, ready?
Yeah, you're in a waterfall of smog.
I think we're aligning.
Yeah, we are.
Okay guys, now we're going to be diving down to computer software level and showing you a program to show you how to...
Shall I do it again, but maybe good?
Please, may I?
Yeah, yes you may.
Okay. Oh, for fuck's sake. I know what stops me laughing.
Watermelon. Watermelon always stops me laughing. There's nothing funny about
it's
watermelon.
A natural laugh inhibitor.
It is.
I think you got a faulty batch.
It tastes good though.
Okay guys, next step, the first step in...
Next step.
Fuck off, you do it.
No, you do it. The first step, you were nearly there. Go on, you're on a roll now.
Okay guys, the first step in creating an... I'm just... Come on! eyes, you looking at me. I don't know whether you're smiling, whether you're about to say, no, you fucked it up, what?
Just keep going until I say stop.
Just look at the fucking camera then, don't look at me.
I can't, it's just weird. Just start looking at the camera and doing nothing else. Fucking hell. You can't recreate.
Sorry, was I supposed to be saying all that?
Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't paying any attention.
You were nodding.
Okay, guys, so that's the
theory. Okay, so time to turbo. Yeah.
Are we going to go on to say about other technologies to use for accelerated steeping?
Yeah.
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 Don't look at me like I've just poked my finger up your arsehole. How dare you!
Like, you know.
It worked. Did you see?
I did. Ah. Oh, jeez. Disappeared in a sea of cloud.
It's fine.
Yeah, okay. Jesus Christ. It's not even a eJuice review. This is just like talking about making it. Jeez. Yeah, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We are quite chatty. Chatty.
Chatty.
Yeah, don't forget to follow us on...
Still laughing about chatty.
Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. We are quite fuck's sake, why can't I say chatty? For fuck's sake.
We try to be, but sometimes it just comes out.
Yeah, so don't forget. Oh, God. Here we go. I think it's all this fucking smog in the air, man.
Okay, guys, so stay tuned for the best.
Ironic.
Fucking infectious.